Are you ready to rock? Welcome to the Women Inspired Podcast, brought to you by CareerKindling.com, a growing movement to help inspire, empower, and ignite women in their careers and in their lives. I'm your host, April Seifert. Each week, I get to interview some of the most inspiring women, and I'm bringing those interviews to you. Let's get to it. Hey everyone, thanks for joining us for this week's podcast. This week's guest is a truly inspiring woman who has a very unique perspective on the world. To people who don't know her, Lynn Broberg might appear to be an ordinary Midwestern woman, but that couldn't be further from the truth. In actuality, she's an avid skydiver and skydive coach with over 3,000 jumps and, count them, 5 world records. In this interview, you can truly hear her love and passion for the sport as she shares with us her experiences, what it's like to hit a world record, and how the lessons she's learned while falling at over 120 miles per hour have bled over into her life and her career. Lynn, welcome.
Thank you, April. It's great to be with you today.
So exciting. So I have been looking forward to recording this one for a long time because you and I share a unique hobby, which we're going to get into a little bit later. But before we get to that, tell us about yourself. Where were you born? Tell us about your family, that type of thing.
Well, I was born and raised in the beautiful community of Stillwater, Minnesota. After graduating from Stillwater Area High School, go Ponies, I earned my Bachelor of Arts in Spanish from the University of Minnesota Twin Cities, go Gophers. I had aspirations of becoming a teacher. I currently work for St. Paul Public Schools, but my life's path did not quite end up with me in the classroom. I spend my days helping to serve breakfast, lunch, snacks, suppers for St. Paul's 38,000 students as the business systems manager for nutrition services. It's safe to say that I have 2 very strong passions in my life. One of them is school and child nutrition. I have one older brother who is in Newmarket with my awesome sister-in-law and their 2 incredible kids.
Nice. So all a big Midwestern family. I love it.
Yep.
So I alluded to it a little bit before, but you and I share a unique hobby, and you are much more experienced in this hobby than I am. But tell us about this interesting hobby of yours.
Well, about 10 years ago, I sort of stumbled into finding a new hobby, and that which is my other passion, and it is skydiving. I did my first skydive as a tandem student on September 17th in 2005 at Skydive with Soda in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, and returned in April of 2006 to take my first jump course. The first jump course is essentially the first step in learning how to skydive by yourself. In 10 and a half years, I've made just over 3,000 jumps, and I currently hold a D license, which is the highest skydiving license issued and recognized by our country's skydiving governing agency, which is the United States Parachute Association, or USPA for short. I also hold a coach and static line instructor rating. My static line instructor rating allows me to teach the static line first jump course, as well as jump master static line students. And my coach rating, which has brought me a lot of fun, allows me to jump with students that have progressed to some level of self-supervision, but are still working on skills, basic skills like turns and falling relative to other jumpers. Additionally, I've also been a tandem videographer for about 7 years. And when I'm not coaching or instructing or videoing, I like to do what some refer to as fun jumps. Although I've always disliked that term because I think regardless, if it's a working jump or a non-working jump, for me, they're all fun.
I have to say, I owe a huge debt of gratitude to the folks who have their coach rating, because as I was learning, I was one of those people who just I just couldn't maintain stability. It was just so difficult. So it was really nice to have great coaches and great instructors out there who were so patient and so fantastic as you're trying to learn this completely weird thing. Your body does not work the same way in the air as it does on the ground. And so when you spend your lifetime walking around on Earth, it is a bizarre experience up there. So I owe a huge debt of gratitude to people who have helped others along the way. So people like yourself.
As a coach, I actually I kind of like jumping with the students that struggle a little bit, because once they get it, their aha moment is just so fulfilling and enriching for them. And because it's so fulfilling and enriching for them, it's fulfilling and enriching for me as a coach and an instructor. The people who are just the naturals and they don't have to work for it, that fulfillment is less because they didn't have to work so hard. So definitely, not to get too hung up on making it perfect. It's a long road. You're many jumps.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great call out that you can't get too hung up on being perfect in the beginning, because it's a very difficult skill. At least it was for me. What was it that got you into skydive? What made you want to make your first jump? I love asking people this.
Well, I was drunk in a bar in Orlando, Florida.
It always starts like that. That's how it always starts. I'm kidding. Keep going.
No, so yeah, it's everybody always asks me that question, and I'm like, well, I was drunk. So no, I was drunk in a bar in Orlando, Florida in February of 2005 with my aunt, and we both have September birthdays. And she excitingly asked me, what are we going to do to celebrate our birthdays this September? Because it was her 45th and my 30th. Without thinking, I just blurted out, let's go skydiving.
Yes.
She responded back with, let's do it. And I said, crap. And I actually didn't say crap, but I'm trying to keep this PG here for your audience.
Thank you.
Because I didn't think my aunt would really go for it. So I thought I was pretty safe saying it, that I wouldn't have to follow through with it. But she, all summer long, have you found a place for us to jump yet? Where are we going? What day are we going? We need to set a date. And so I found a spot, and let me tell you that 7 months, so between February and September, 7 months is a long time to let your brain tell you all the reasons why something is a bad idea.
Oh, man.
And I almost backed out into the very last minute. We were at the drop zone. We had done all of our paperwork. We were all trained. We were waiting for the plane to come down. I told my aunt, I'm like, if I don't go first, I'm not going to go. I can't go. And she made me go first, and I went. So I remember having a complete permagrin the entire ride, plane ride up. And it definitely wasn't because I was having so much fun. It was because I was really forcing myself to smile, because I didn't want to cry in front of the other skydivers.
Oh, God, I know that so well.
The next thing I know, I was hooked up with my tandem instructor. The door came open. We started to climb out. To this day, I still think that one of the most unnatural things that any human can do is to climb out of and exit an airplane in flight. And that was the hardest part of the tandem skydive. And I think to this day, it's still the hardest part of any skydive, is just getting out the door. Nate was my tandem instructor. And I remember as soon as we left and we were in free fall, I remember saying to myself, what's done is done. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. There's obviously no turning back now, so I better just enjoy it.
You're not getting back in.
Exactly. There's only, once you exit, there's only one way at that point. So to say that, and I got down and I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most funnest thing I've ever done. My instructor unhooked me, and I literally turned around and said, Nate, how do I learn how to do this? And the rest is history. So that was one, and I was planning on doing one and getting the video, watch the video the rest of my life, and be done with it. And here we are 10 and a half years later and 3,000 jumps later.
That's amazing. It's so funny because your story is so similar to mine. So you're at 3,000, I'm at 30 and change, so much less than that. It's such a similar beginning story. And one thing that I'll say, that if anybody who's listening to this is ever contemplating going, every single person is completely terrified out of their mind. Like, you can't get out the door unless that tandem person's pushing you, and thank God they do, because it's the greatest experience. But every single person is absolutely terrified, and the cool thing about it is that when you exit the plane, this is one of those very rare moments in your life that you can scream like blood curdling, like someone's going to kill you. You can scream so loud, and it just doesn't matter because it's completely appropriate for that situation. So it is such an interesting, weird experience, but so, so cool.
So when tandem students always land, I always hear two different comments, and they all fall into these two different categories. The first one is, that is the most amazing thing I've ever done. I am so glad that I did it, and I'm going to do it again. And then there's the second group that comes down and says, that is the most amazing thing I've ever done. I'm so glad that I did it, and I don't ever want to do it again. But I've never heard anyone say, oh, I wish I wouldn't have done that.
Me either. So, I've watched hundreds of people land, and I've never, ever, ever seen a single person not be so elated they couldn't even stand being in their own body at that moment. So you mentioned being afraid on the ride up and putting that permagrin on your face to keep from crying and whatever. How long did that fear last, or is it still there? Or what has your experience been in your relationship with fear through the course of making 3,000 skydives?
Yeah, for me, I thought the tandems were relatively easy because my responsibility was limited. I wasn't in charge of making sure to pull the parachute. I wasn't in charge of having to fly the canopy to landing, and not having to land. Things kind of changed once I took the first jump course, and I knew how much fun it was, and I kind of do the risk versus the reward. So my fear is based on something bad could happen, and the reward is that this is so much fun. So how I kind of managed that in my head was, I'm not going to focus on the fear and what can happen. I'm going to focus on having fun and doing what I need to do to stay safe. So instead of focusing on what could happen, I was focusing on what am I going to do. And the majority of times when you start focusing on things that you need to do, okay, I need to pull my parachute, I need to arch, I need to flare and use my brakes when I go to land. Now I've eliminated a lot of the bad things that could go happen because I'm actively participating in making sure that they don't happen. The plane ride up is the most mentally challenging game you'll ever play with yourself. You start to think of what am I doing? Why am I doing this? Okay, I've done 3, should just call it a day. They've been 3 great jumps. Why do I keep pushing it? But then I remember, because this is so fun. I'm doing this because it is so fun. So that's kind of how, to this day, is I don't think about all the bad things that can happen. I think about all the things I'm going to do to prevent bad things from happening. That
is actually a really great perspective on it. It's just a necessary evil within the sport to have a relationship with fear, and that plane ride up is awful for me still. It's so difficult because you're sitting and thinking about, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? This is not okay. And you're right, the door is totally unnatural. It's a very weird experience. Very strange. One other thing I wanted to ask you is the way that you described what you need to do in order to keep yourself safe. It was very methodical and one step at a time. What I've noticed, for myself at least within this sport, is it's one of the very few times that I can truly and completely shut my mind off except for the one thing I'm doing right at that moment, because it's impossible for me, as I'm thinking about arching and leaving the plane in a controlled way, or I'm thinking about when I need to check altitude next or that type of thing, I physically cannot make my brain think about the meeting I'm going to have this coming week that has been worrying me. Have you found that experience of being just completely in the moment?
Yep, absolutely. And I think there's a video, I think it's called Why We Jump, that does a really good job explaining how skydivers don't see skydiving as necessarily the adrenaline and the stress and the mental challenges that non-skydivers see in skydiving, or that they imagine they see in skydiving. So when I'm skydiving, it's actually a very relaxing thing for me. My coworkers can tell if it's been a few weeks if I haven't jumped, because I get a little bit cranky. So definitely it's definitely my stress reliever, because I can go and in that moment of skydiving, I'm thinking of nothing else. I don't think about, oh, what a bad day I had at work, or, gosh, other things that come up in everyday life and stress. All I'm thinking about is that skydive, what I'm doing in that particular moment. And in essence, it's kind of like it's a mental vacation for your brain. It lets your brain shut off all the bad and things and challenges that you have in your life, and allows you to focus on just the task at hand. When we're on the ground and even just sitting here talking with you, is that I can stop and regroup my thoughts, and then I can continue again. Well, in skydiving, you don't have that opportunity to get distracted by, oh, what was I supposed to pick up at the grocery store? I can think that with you, on the phone here with you, but in the air and in skydiving, you really have to focus on what the task at hand. And to me, that's like I said, it's like a mental vacation for my brain, and I love it.
Oh, mental vacation. That would be so nice to have on a daily basis. If we could all just start the day off with just one quick jump in the morning to just set the day on a good tone, I think that'd be the way to do it.
I'll sign up for that plan. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. We'll all just meet out there at like 7, do a little sunrise jump, and then go to work. So I wanted to ask you about your experiences being a woman in this sport. Historically, I think it has been much more male-dominated. I think there's many, many more women, although I don't know the proportions of people with licenses, what proportion are men and women. But I see more women in the sport today. What has your experience been as, being a woman in this unique sport?
It's actually been a really cool experience being a female in this male-dominated sport. I think USPA puts the percentages of about 85 to 15% male to female ratio. It might be 84 to 16. And one thing is that the more females that you have at a drop zone, the more females that come to that drop zone and see that presence, and it kind of lets it flourish, so that they're a little bit more interested, thinking, hey, this is something I can do just alongside the boys.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it kind of depends on the drop zone, and I think your Skydive Twin Cities and Skydive Wissota, they do have a large portion of female jumpers, and I think that kind of just keeps that ball rolling. I love being a female in a male-dominated sport. Starting out, the guys are all excited to help you and teach you how to improve, because you're a female in the sport, a male-dominated sport, and the females are excited. Other women are excited to see other women in the sport, and want to help them as much, because we want more women in the sport. But in skydiving, it's a very unique sport. I shouldn't say unique, because there might be other sports out there similar to this. But when you look at football, or you look at running, typically guys have the advantage just because of the physical mm-hmm. differences between the male and female body.
Yep.
You look at world records for track and field. The male records are, a shorter time than the female records. And it has nothing to do with, commitment. It has nothing to do with ability. It just simply is because of the physical differences between men and women. Well, when you put on a jumpsuit and you put on a helmet and you put on a parachute and you jump out of that airplane, there is no difference between the female body and the male body. We can compete equally at the same level as men. And that is unbelievably cool, in my opinion. It's truly an equal playing field.
That is extremely unique. And you're right. I mean, there are just physical differences between us that do make other sports, it's just harder to compete head to head. But it's true. You're out there in the wind, and it's all based on how you know how to control your body and how you're able to make those tiny little movements that make such a huge difference when you're, falling at 120, 140, 100 and more than that sometimes miles per hour.
Yeah.
So you mentioned competing. I know you've done some competitions in the past, but I don't actually know which competitions you've been in. So tell us a little bit about your competitive background.
Yeah, so when I started skydiving at Skydive Wasota, there were all these pictures of hundreds of people jumping together, making a completed formation. And I was really enthralled because I couldn't grasp all of the skill and everything that had to go into making that picture happen. And I really wanted to do it someday. Skydive Wasota is a club, so technically we're owned and operated by club members like me. But for all intents and purposes, two of our jumpers, Bob Stum and Mary Bauer, are our drop zone owners. Between them, Bob and Mary have more large formation world records than I could possibly name. And they're in every single picture of big waves on the clubhouse wall, including the existing large formation record of 400 people.
Holy
they
cow.
kind of took me under, 400 way. That was in Thailand in 2005. And it
Can we just pause for a second and think about the folks who are listening to this? Think about, you need to get 400 people into the air at the same time. 400 people have to exit planes, many of them, at the same or very close to the same time. They all have to get to the same place in the air and be touching in a particular formation before you hit the altitude that everybody has to get away from each other, far enough to get away from each other, and pull a parachute to safely land all in one spot. 400 people doing it all at the same time. That's insane to think about.
It is insane to think about.
So tell me about the records that you've been a part of.
I have 5 world records that I've broken, and 2 of them are still existing world records. The first world record was the 2.117-way women's sequential record. So in skydiving, when we build a formation, we call it a point. And if we transition from one formation or one point to another on the same skydive, it's called a sequential. So on this particular skydive, there was 117 of us women. We built one formation, transitioned to a second formation before tracking off. And not only was that the women's sequential world record, but at the time it was the overall general world record, meaning that the world record for the entire world had no guys on it. So when we go back to talking about females in the sport, is the girls set the record and the guys had to come after us. So the overall general world record has been broken by a group of both men and women, but the women's sequential record still stands. And my second, third, and fourth world records were POPs world records for the largest formation. And POPs stands for Parachutist Over 40 Society, with a play on the phonetics on the 40, spelling it with a PH instead of an S.
Got it.
The first POPs record was 123-way in October of 2015. I had turned 40 less than 2 weeks before the event started. And back when they announced the event, I decided that was my way of celebrating the fact that I was over the hill, but I could do things that I couldn't do unless I was over the hill. And I'll do the quotation marks around over the hill because I don't feel like I'm over the hill. So we built a 123-way October of 2015. In this last October of 2016, we returned to California, and the POPs group, we completed a 128-way formation on a Saturday. and we still had four jumps left in the event. And on Sunday, we completed 130 way. So on Sunday, we broke the record that we set on Saturday.
That's awesome. Holy cow. I hear you say that, and I think about the complexity that went into those attempts, and it just gives me goosebumps thinking about how it must feel when you hit it and you're pretty sure that you hit it. It's got to feel just incredible.
Yeah, it's world record events are a roller coaster of emotions. I have been on 2 world record events that did not result in a world record, and certainly, there's some disappointment, but you think in the grand scheme of things is, I just attempted a world record. It's okay that we didn't get it. People attempt to do great things in their life all the time, and it doesn't always work out, and you can say, well, I tried and it didn't work, or you can say, I tried and I'm going to keep trying. And I just chose to keep trying, and here I am, having the time of my life, so to speak.
Back up from when you actually hit that record, which has to feel, as I said, amazing. How many attempts does it take? So say for one of the ones that I don't know, on average, one that you made, one that you didn't make, how many attempts did you end up making? And how do you stay motivated as you're trying over and over?
It takes as many as it takes, and hopefully not any more than you have in an event. The organizers of the event will set the number of days and the number of jumps for the event based on how complex the formation is, how big it is, if you're doing that sequential move, doing the 2-point skydive. So there's a lot of planning that goes into this. There's a joke at every big way record event where the organizers will get up and say, guys, we don't have to wait till the last jump to break the record, right? There's a history of when the feet are to the fire, it happens. It doesn't always happen. Obviously, as I mentioned, that I've been to 2 events that didn't result in a record, but definitely, having the experience and spending a week with some really awesome people, I can't think of any better way to spend my vacations. So in the POPs record, it was we did it early. We did a day early. We had 4 or 5 jumps left in the event. The women's sequential record, I think we did it a day early, and I think we had 4 or 5 jumps left in the event. The POPs record in October of 2015 was the last jump of the event.
Wow.
Yeah, so you're up there and you're like, this is it, it's go time. But it's a roller coaster of emotions, because you can have one jump go really well, and then the next jump, it's a complete mess. And you can have one jump that's a complete mess, and then the next jump goes really well. So the unique thing about these large formations is that everybody has to have a really good jump or their best jump on the same jump. So if you're talking about 4 people, it's not so hard to get 4 people to get together to have their best jump. Mm-hmm. But when you start talking about 130 people or 117 people, or in, Bob and Mary's records case, 400 people, try to get 400 people to have the best jump that they've ever had all on the same jump. So that's what really makes these records really special for me and very unique is how much has to happen for it to work. And the planning starts long before the jumpers start at the drop zone. There's planes and pilots that have to be organized, facilities. So it's kind of like the Super Bowl. These are big ways are like the Super Bowl. Okay, everybody knows that it just doesn't. A few cameras just don't show up the day of the Super Bowl, and the players come and they have a ball and they play the game. Mm-hmm. There's months and months and years of planning to make sure that everything goes correctly and everything is coordinated. That's like these big way events. So by the time we show up, it's game time, and it's the easy part, because definitely the organizers, they spend a lot of time and effort trying to make sure that everything is put into play and everything is set up so that we can be successful. You ask us, how does it feel to break a record? You go through ups and downs in emotions, and you have to guard yourself. because the timing of everything can really make it difficult if you don't break it to go back up and do that same best jump that you just had again. Typically in a large formation, there's a moment where things turn quiet. And it's hard to explain to somebody that hasn't experienced that, but it's just kind of like you don't see a lot of movement. You don't feel a lot of pressure. It just all of a sudden becomes mentally quiet. And that's how most people say, I got that quiet feeling. It got quiet there. I think we got it. I think we completed it. Well, we don't know until the judges get the video and the judges look at the video and the judges check every single grip on every single skydiver to make sure that everybody is in the exact slot that they need to be in and that they've gripped the correct grip. So if you're supposed to take an arm grip and you take a leg grip, that is not a world record. If you're supposed to be on, I'm supposed to be on your left side, but I'm on your right side, it's not a world record. So everything has to be exactly as declared. So the judges really have to go and they, zoom into the video and they make sure that they can see the grips. And this takes a while because they've got quite a few grips to go through. So meanwhile, you're going through the motions of, okay, I need to stay hydrated. I need to think about my next jump. I need to think about my exit and my approach and my dock and my breakaway plan and my canopy flight. Because all it takes is one grip for them to say, put it back in the air. You have to maintain that mental focus. And it is very difficult when all you want to do is just be like, we got it. Yeah, I'm sure we got it. We don't need to focus. We can party now. but you never know. So typically during this time, we're doing some focus and we're also talking with our teammates going, did you get in? Did you get in? Did you get in? Did you get in? Did you dock? Are you good? Was your sector built? So we're also trying to find confirmation or non-confirmation from our teammates. But you really have to stay focused because there could be another jump. And then they announce the record, and it's always very surreal for me. It doesn't feel real because it just feels like I did another skydive. And it's usually after I have a few beers and maybe a shot or two of tequila at night that it really dawns on me the scope of the grandness of what we did. So it's usually very in private that I have that emotional I can't believe I did that, and it hits me.
That is a huge accomplishment. Any one of them, any big way like that is a huge accomplishment. That's amazing and very, very inspiring. So you've been in this sport for a decade. You've made 3,000 skydives, which is 3,000 more than I think a lot of people have ever thought that maybe they would make, unless maybe they're hearing this and now they're really excited and want to go do a tandem jump, in which case they can find some information on your show notes page about how to do that. But you've been in the sport for a while. Thinking back, what do you take away from it? What are the big lessons that if you had to talk to somebody who isn't a skydiver, who isn't a skydiver in the sense that you are, that you go out really regularly, what can somebody take away from the sport that you've learned over the years that they can apply to their lives and help them get through, different situations that we all face each day?
It's no doubt skydiving has changed my life, and a lot of the changes have been in my professional life. Because of skydiving, I'm a better and more confident manager, mentor, and leader at work. Right now, we're going through some consulting work on creating a positive leadership environment where we focus on our team's strengths rather than their weaknesses, which is sometimes sugar-coated and labeled as areas for improvement. I've had the privilege of being a part of 5 world records that prove that focusing on strengths rather than weaknesses is a success. My strengths as a big wave formation skydiver are different than others. I excel at being towards kind of the center of the formation, which is a completely different skill set than being on the outside of the formation. So somebody that's got the skill set to do the outside of the formation, they might struggle to do a slot inside the formation. But we both have to do what we do really well in order to make it successful. So that premise is kind of helping me in my work is that, let's give this task to so-and-so because this really is in their wheelhouse. This is their strength. and it makes them a more confident employee. It makes them a more engaged employee. So that's really kind of cool for me to be able to apply some of those, skydiving and big way experiences to making me professionally a better manager, mentor, and more confident, which is always good.
So this has been just fantastic. It's been so cool to hear these experiences from your perspective, from the mouth of somebody who's actually gone through these very unique competitions and been in this really unique sport. I think a lot of us have seen the photos of the really big skydive formations, but it's amazing to see what goes into it. And you have a really great outlook on, what that's taught you in life. Before I let you go, I have to ask you one more question. We are compiling a playlist on Spotify to help keep people motivated and inspired all week long after they've listened to the podcast. I ask each person that I'm interviewing for their contribution to that playlist. So before I let you go, I have to ask you what your favorite motivational song is.
My favorite motivational song is "Lose Yourself" by Eminem.
Yeah.
The lyrics about losing yourself in the music and in the moment is very, very relevant to skydiving, because we talked a little bit about the mental vacation that we give our brains when we skydive. So it's kind of that lose yourself in the moment and just enjoy it and do your best.
Oh my gosh, you have completely made my week. And it's this has just been so, so fantastic. I can't thank you enough, Lynn, for being open and coming on the podcast and answering all my crazy questions, but then, being willing to share your experiences with hopefully bunch of strangers who are listening to us right now. Can't thank you enough for the thoughtful responses you gave and for sharing everything that you've learned over the years with all of our listeners. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. And hopefully we'll get some more people to come out and try to do a tandem skydive or learn how to skydive on their own and join our great sport.
I hope you enjoyed that interview with the incredibly brave Lynn Broberg of Skydive with Soda. To make the most of what you heard in her interview, head over to www.careerkindling.com and search for Skydive to bring up Lynn's show notes page. Here you'll find some key takeaways from today's interview, as well as some prompts to help you reflect on what you heard. While you're there, sign up to join our community, and we'll give you immediate access to our Spotify Power playlist, including Lynn's song, Lose Yourself. We'd also love to hear from you, so head over to iTunes, leave us a rating or a review, and if you liked what you heard, hit the subscribe button. Until next time, have an inspired week.